Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings.
Let me start off firstly by welcoming you onto the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I don't know who wants to kick off. Maybe it's the first time in a long time I've had more than one person to talk to. So I'll leave it to you to decide who does the intro first, or you can tag team. You're welcome. Good to hear about you guys and your company.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm Ian. I'm happy to go for first here. So Mike Wagner, CEO and co-founder of Metify, and I guess can just to jump into a quick background if you'd like.
Sure.
And okay, so well, actually, maybe we'll do the quick intros first. Ian, go ahead, and who are you, sir?
Sure. So Ian Evans, CTO for Metify. A little bit of my background: I've been in the data center space for a very long period of time. I've worked in pretty much every vertical known to man. I have a lot of experience in healthcare. I've worked in the federal space. I've worked for integrators. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I've taken all of that experience, and really what we'll talk to you about today is how we kind of built the product, the Metify product, around all those experiences, and really kind of honed it into something that people can consume. So yeah, real excited to talk to you today.
And then my background a little bit, I've been a computer geek since as long as I can remember. Just always fascinated by the technology and whatever I could, build from it. So I started coding when I was in 7th grade-ish. And then started working for IBM. Got kind of lucky with that gig, but started working with IBM while still in college. Well, I guess, skill, luck, whatever. And then from IBM, I went to Red Hat. And then Red Hat got bought by IBM again. So right around the time that was announced, I was in channel sales. I was running a new group within Red Hat channel sales. I had the opportunity to help build and launch our Apex partner program, which was focused on SIs. And SIs in particular that knew how to build application stacks, were solid with OpenShift, were solid with Ansible. So guys that really understood the DevOps space. And frankly, the digital transformation that was really just beginning on the application side. Docker changed everything, and it took a little bit to figure out how to best enable containers to do these really cool things that they can do with from a velocity, reliability, the CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment patterns. And how that can absolutely be a competitive advantage, right? So had a chance to be a part of that, kicking that off with Red Hat. And then that's exactly how I met Ian. He was sort of the top architect for the open group at one of our largest SIs. And he showed me his thesis around bare metal provisioning. And I immediately knew that we were that he was onto something, and I would love to be a part of it. So, and entrepreneurially minded, always, once the IBM announced they were going to be purchasing Red Hat, and then they pivoted. Red Hat actually pivoted out of the product because IBM already had something. So we realized that this would be perfectly served by a startup, and that's what created Metify. So boom, here we are.
And that gap, I would almost say, it was created. I mean, did you have something already built, or it was a case of finding a client and building at the same time while you were flying, I guess?
Well, we had a beta in mind, and Ian had it sort of mentally worked out. And then we did work on development a bit while I was with Red Hat, but it was really nascent. All right, these are sort of just high-level ideas, and we had to force in frankly, Red Hat stuff to make it work. Ian's vision was broader and deeper and more open, if you will, than even an open source's, and the Red Hat inclusion of what we initially based the product around was a product called ManageIQ. Really excellent product. It was brought in as an acquisition. But they pivoted out of that, and we saw Ian always had a sort of a bigger vision for it that we were able to embrace 100% once we launched, and we really couldn't do it any other way. And it's interesting because a lot of analysts were reviewing this space, and really the consensus always was the only way to do this is with a startup that is not tied to any of the big OEMs, Hewlett Packard or Dell or Supermicro, because otherwise who would take you seriously? And the proprietary platforms are already doing similar things that we do, but just in a much more complex and sort of bloated fashion, if you will. So for us, it was about making it simple. And Ian, has he's worked with military, Navy in particular in the past, and that simple, keep it simple, stupid analogy coming out of, it's an old Navy saying in the U.S. here, really was a guiding principle to how he wanted his vision to come together. And it's been an interesting, that's another story, talking about development, product development, and all the different shapes that takes, and the fights that you have to have even as a founder to bring your vision to bear. Is really, it's been a really fun and wild journey. But we had absolutely the vision in mind, and the ability to sort of beta, almost alpha test it, if you will, with some of the biggest companies on earth. And that was the thing that really pushed us to doing this, right? We had companies, literally the biggest in financial services, the biggest in telco, the biggest in manufacturing, saying, wow, we want to buy this. But there was no product, so what a really fun problem to have. Right?
Yeah, good place to be. So maybe, Ian, since we've talked about your vision a few times, let's hear a bit about that, if you can keep it layman.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I think at the end of the day, Mike did talk a little bit about it, but I've used a lot of these technologies in the data center. I've used different automation frameworks in the data center. I just felt like everything was a little bit too complex. There wasn't really a really good cohesive solution. There's a lot of separate tools all over the place, and customers just getting really frustrated with having to use all those diverse tool sets and not really get the outcomes they need from a sustainability perspective. And things like being able to control CapEx and OpEx were really a challenging thing. So as I looked at it and I kind of brought the vision together, I was like, there's really good opportunity to take all this, bring it into a single kind of unified framework and tool set, and then allow customers of varying skill to be able to use it. That's the other thing that was as a vision for us is, we want to appeal to the developer, kind of like the nerd, if you will, that knows how to use this stuff, knows how to write all these automation scripts and frameworks and all this. But we also wanted somebody, say at a CXO level, to be able to go in, quickly go into the tool and know what it's all about and start automating stuff. So our vision was very broad. We wanted to cover that entire organization because we understand that in order for a private data center to be successful, you really have to have the buy-in from the CXO level, at the high level in the organization. So for us, that was extremely important. We wanted to have quick acquisition of assets as an example. You have a lot of different systems within all of these infrastructures, and it's relatively hard for organizations to identify those assets quickly and use them in an intelligent way. So one of the things we really wanted to focus on is rapid identification of those assets. So there's less time, combing through all of this infrastructure and trying to find what you need. And the tool will be focused on really identifying those as quick as possible and then getting it into the hands of the consumer to the point where they can actually deploy their application stack on top of it. So like our whole transformation in this really was under the hood with all this infrastructure stuff like you see in the public cloud. Customers don't necessarily care. They just wanted to do certain things. They want to see a result. So we saw it as an opportunity to let the customer focus more on the application and the outcomes for the business in terms of how the application is consumed, and less on a lot of the very tedious aspects of server provisioning that they normally experience within the data center.
There's a huge manual effort that's required to do the things that we enable automatically via Mojo Platform, and that's where we are working with some large SIs and data centers the ability to focus people on things of value instead of these highly manual, error-prone activities is a real efficiency driver, and one of the core reasons why enterprises adopt our tool.
And you, because you mentioned public cloud, I assume you mean the Azures, the Google Clouds, the Amazons of the world.
Yeah.
And these are customers that are going and renting server space in a data center, on their own. Whether they own the servers or not doesn't matter, but they don't have that layer in between, and you guys provide that layer. Is that the right understanding?
A little different. So the hyperscalers have their offering, and they make it incredibly easy for enterprises to spin up servers at will. Okay, so and in fact, it created a problem, frankly, for enterprises. It was called the shadow IT. Groups, individual, software groups would just grab, some EC2 instances and spin up servers, and that caused all kinds of security problems. And there were some, rather public things that occurred. But so it's a real nightmare for a CXO, CIO, CTO to have to deal with that, right? So reining in shadow IT. And the reason it's all happening is because these Amazons, these hyperscalers make it so easy. So what we did is we took lessons learned from the enterprise, security considerations from the enterprise, from working with these customers directly. We got to be in their cold rooms and see what they're going through, see the pain points that they have. And we sort of distilled that into a brand new best of breed product that leverages only modern technologies and the latest open standards that frankly weren't around 6 years ago. So this wasn't possible more than 6 years ago. Okay, so the open standards just weren't agreed to, and they weren't ubiquitous as they are now. So that's the big thing that happened for us. So what we did is we created that layer of simplicity that the hyperscalers already have. So the hyperscalers have it. We brought it so you could take that layer, if you will, bring it on your side of the firewall, and allow you to DIY very simply your own private clouds. And really, it's a hybrid cloud situation.
Great. So you mentioned Mojo, at least. How does that differ from the company, or is Metify also a product, or is just Mojo the product?
Yeah, no. So it's just so Mojo Platform and Photon are sort of our two main products. Mojo Platform is the one that's gotten the most attention and has the most installations from an enterprise perspective. So and partnerships with some of our big partners that we rely on. Frankly, I mean they're really great. And Mojo Platform is the bare metal provisioning solution that is what makes everything very simple and provides that cloud-like experience for enterprises from 5 servers up to 50,000. So it really doesn't matter from a scale perspective. We can go and have customers that have looked at it for hundreds of thousands of nodes. And it's the cool thing about this is with the evolution of the edge, right, and with the evolution of data centers as we know it, the digital workplace is driving this a lot, right? The at-home remote office situation, everyone became remote overnight practically, and there's all sorts of considerations there that no one was ready for, and that includes security, the overall experience. What is the experience of your workers like at home? Trying to figure out the best possible experience while still providing the necessary security and governance over that new extended office model, which used to be handled by a single router and a few servers in a particular office. Now you've got thousands of routers, right? So that's a really interesting challenge, and we're still building out the infrastructure to handle that. From this is a local regional telco statement and a digital provider statement overall, right? So we've got solutions that work really nice in that space. So there's some strong drivers of that we've built Mojo Platform to be able to assist with, and then also Photon. When COVID hit, we helped build out an infrastructure that was required for rural wireless broadband to help teachers, allow them to connect and have a good experience with their classes. And that was right in Ian's backyard. in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So if you can imagine, there's no tougher environment that I can picture. I mean, it's granite mountains with lots of pine trees. And so dense foliage with impenetrable base is a really tough thing to deal with. So, but yeah, so we learned some really cool lessons, and that's some more IP that we created from a company perspective. It was incredibly rewarding just to be able to help out during that time. But now the union of those two products has really brought us into some interesting opportunities and some really, really fun problems to solve as we, as a country, try to address making sure that everyone has the same access and equality from a technology perspective to learn and do what they need to do from wherever they may be.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a beautiful landscape that you described, the granite rocks and pine trees and stuff. I mean, I'm down in South Africa at the moment. That ruralness is a big factor. If you drive into areas and the old townships and there still are townships and shanty towns and all that kind of stuff, where the local providers have provided connectivity, but there's still gaps. So actually, I'd love to explore the Photon product with you guys separately, just to understand how that works and see if, while I'm still here, connected with some people.
Cool.
While you were saying that, I was thinking about the digital workspace, and we didn't ask my sort of usual question, and what does digital workspace mean to you? But I was also thinking about, usually this is a server play, but are you actually deploying end user devices as well into the cloud? So hosting, sort of virtual desktops?
Yeah. So not hosting virtual desktop. Well, we actually could, but that's not an area. So I'll let Ian go deep on this, but this is exactly where Photon and Mojo mesh. Ian developed. He won't toot his own horn, so I'll do it for him here. But he developed just a bulletproof enterprise router, but for the home. And so this is, it's a product we know that we could launch and do extremely well with right now commercially. But we're a software company, so we're kind of weighing the value, and we're picking our partnerships very carefully, and working in that way to best take advantage of the IP that we have. But we've used it for years. It's an incredible piece of really technology, and in many ways, as when Ian talked about his background experiences, this was his distillation of years of frustration and years of trying to get good signal through his Rubicon of wireless impossibilities on the mountain, and the outspring of that was Photon, the Photon router, and it's a beast. So from that, if you want to discuss the CPE and the full solution, man, might as well. We got time, right?
Yeah. I'll give definitely a good overview of it here. So Photon, it's interesting because, like Mike said, there was a lot of frustration around delivery of technology in these rural areas, right? And I was one of those people coming up in the mountain. I was very frustrated. Couldn't get a really good signal up here at all. You're kind of stuck in these situations where you're using these monolithic hotspots, and you just literally want to take it and with a hockey stick and punt it down the hill, right? Mm-hmm. So I just got to the point where, okay, there's a better way to do this. I was a DMTS at Verizon at the time, so I used a lot of this technology. It was in my daily activities, and designing all sorts of technologies for wireless communications and stuff. So took that expertise. I built a kind of a custom router footprint that was highly optimized, and just started kicking the tires on it, see how it did initially. And it actually turned into something where it was significantly better than anything out there, and the outcomes were great. So I effectively optimized it, packaged it up, put my own automation in it, and started to deliver it to a bunch of different customers in these very hard to reach areas. I mean, like Mike said, there's areas where these customers have literally zero connectivity, or they're in a situation where they are getting such low and lousy bandwidth outcomes that they don't want to work, and they can't work from home. So by enabling that, bringing the wireless service up here, and then taking that and delivering it down to the customer, It was just an amazing experience to see people be able to work and see kids be able to actually do school from home rather than having to go sit in front of a library, and work out the hotspot, right? So it was a good test bed for us with Mojo too, because like Mike said, we're kind of merging these products together. There's a connectivity solution there, and as we push Mojo out to the edge and we start to automate things at the edge, of course, you need some connectivity solutions for that, right? So we're taking that, we're kind of stitching it in there. And then when people need to do remote data center provisioning, small edge-based data centers or small deployments, well, there's a great solution for that. And we're automating all that in there. And we're integrating all sorts of great technologies there, like CBRS, Citizens Broadband, which is kind of like an open source. There's an open source element to it, but it allows companies like ourselves to be able to take LTE-based technologies or 5G technologies and push it out to the edge. So yeah, we're very much focused on that area, and we look forward to seeing what it can do for Mojo. I think it's just a great opportunity here.
So just explain to me. So is Photon a hardware device?
It's like, consider it a product. It's essentially a product. So it is a hardware device, but it also has a custom software stack on it. But it's highly optimized. Yep. So yeah, I almost consider it like a deliverable type of router. But there's also a service that's kind of attached to it. It's kind of one of those things where you have to have all the elements there to really get that customer outcome you want. So we consider Photon, the product, is the connectivity is part of that. And then you have the router, then you have the software, and all that comes into a nice kind of automated package that's delivered to the customer.
I mean, one of the things I think that might be the most relatable to kind of put it in frame for you. How many times have you had to push the power button on your router because your signal was messed? Okay, so we've never had to do that. So there's a self-correcting, there's automation that Ian has built in to essentially make that not happen. So we have devices up for years without a single cold reboot. So that's the type of resilience and reliability mindset that Ian approached this with, and he's fanatical about it. I mean, and the cool part was inside the industry, there's secrets, there's known secrets. With the hyperscalers, frankly, right? With some of the biggest and best companies, they know they have tricks, but so we took some of those tricks and really built upon them, because the hyperscalers aren't leveraging this for home use, and that's where Ian really had a lot of fun, and there's definitely some intellectual capital that we'll keep as trade secrets, but they're great, and we look forward to providing this. It's definitely a better experience across the board, which is something that we're also trying to change the language on a little bit, and it's difficult to explain to. I can
imagine.
Yeah, so it's difficult to explain to local development groups, state and local governments that, well, we don't need that much bandwidth. Now, it's good. We're happy to take it, and we'll certainly bring in fiber and work with fiber whenever possible. Okay, so don't get me wrong. There's no way to replace a fiber connection as a beautiful thing, even though we are beaming up to his mountain. But that's another story. So it's you can do a lot with wireless, but fiber is always preferred. But the key is the experience for the customer. So quality of experience should be the measure, not bandwidth, because bandwidth is often a lie. You could be getting a couple hundred megabytes in, but you're not getting nearly enough up. So you end up with a lot of jitter. You end up with a lot of what are called buffer bloat. And it's the inefficiencies within the router itself that just cause the experience to go into the toilet. And what does the broadband company say to you? They say, well, on our end, it's pinging fine. We've got 200 up and, 200 down and 10 up. Everything looks fine, but your experience is garbage. Right. Yeah,
and that's right. And I think there should never be a situation where a customer, when you're working on a product with delivering it to a customer, and you have a cornered market, right? And you're trying to twist their arm into something that is not going to be very optimal for them. So like we even though we have areas where we're literally the only provider because for years and years and years customers couldn't get anything. We finally delivered it, and we felt like we're going to deliver the same exact outcome to that customer that a customer that would be completely served with say 2 or 3 different providers. Yeah. So they're very thankful of that. It also puts you in a good position because if you do have a competitive product that comes in, a competitive company, you're viewed very favorably with that customer, so you don't really have to explain a whole lot. And if you deliver, like I think we're doing quite well, I don't think you have to explain, too much. So we are extremely happy with what's been delivered. The uptimes are great. Like Mike said, we feel like we fixed a lot of these problems around buffer bloat and latency. And the customers we get a lot of great feedback.
It's going to be a very fun, as a startup, we it's been setting Ian loose kind of on whatever really interests him in this particular space, right? And just optimizing things. And there's a lot of technology integrations. I guess that's the piece that's been hardest, and it makes it easy to understand why this problem has persisted as long as it has, because it really has to be approached from an enterprise reliability perspective. But we didn't have this need to do that to the home. So it was kind of a solution waiting for a problem. And then COVID hit, and this became a well-known, ubiquitous problem. So it's fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what we end up doing with it. And we have some very interesting partnerships established around it to do some huge, huge things. And we'll see,
Yeah, as I add one last thing, there's that kind of like almost like industry arrogance. Like we are going to tell the customer what they need and what we should deliver to them, instead of asking the customer and understanding what they really need, right? So like our product is based on our experiences, right, which are very important, obviously, for developing the product. But everything that we built in is based on customer feedback. And it could be the smallest customer at the most minute bandwidth requirement, but they still have very specific requirements. So we have made sure that we've got all that feedback, and we built it into the product, as we rolled it out. So,
yeah, and I mean, if you go back, pre-COVID, everything was built for the enterprise, which was almost like the Formula One racing thing, where the cars were designed for Formula One, and then you wait 5 years, and it become a consumer product, and that ABS braking took 5 years to get to a commercial car, and the same sort of thing. And I think not just COVID, I think in a lot of senses, what Apple was doing with bringing out the iPhone and iPads and all that sort of stuff changed the consumer view on IT, because everything was just integrated and it kind of worked, and there was no sort of challenges, which Microsoft couldn't do for a long time. Some they still can't do it. But that sort of raises the expectation of a person, at home, I've got a Mac and it all just works. Then I come to work and I've got another device and it doesn't all work. Why is that the case? Which means everyone has to raise their game. And your example of the reboot for the router, I mean, being in South Africa the last couple of months, I don't know if you guys know what load shedding is, but it's the national pastime where we turn the power off for 2 hours at a time to save the power generation because of poor maintenance and a whole lot of other things. But one of the frustrations with that is, even with UPSs and generators and all that kind of stuff, is you constantly are walking around rebooting all your mesh nodes and routers, because the power switching causes them to get out of sync, and you're wasting 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time. So not having to do that would be actually quite productivity gain. And also when you're, and I'm sitting at the edge of the country on the coast on a golf course, when the power goes out, my connectivity goes down because all the towers go into reduced power mode. So your 5G becomes 4G,
right? And
if you're on 4G, becomes 3G. The fiber will work for a period of time, but then that'll also run out of power if the load shedding is too long. And so something that deals with that and can improve the quality of experience, as you mentioned, is hugely valuable. Especially with battery power, built into it if you haven't got battery power already.
Yeah, we definitely have some optimizations we put in around that, and I believe we'll probably talk about a little bit, but a lot of the green infrastructure requirements. These are things that we look at for the data center, but we also have incorporated into our photon designs as well. And because you have such a minimal footprint, and a lot of these new nodes are so power efficient. I mean, you're talking about things you can put in the palm of your hand. You can run off 5 volt or 12 volt DC, and you're literally running off the same power adapter that you run your Android phone off of, or charge your Android phone off of. So the efficiencies are there, and it's just a matter of course, designing everything in a way that it's consistent with the rest of the devices in the home. So yeah, we've been tackling that. We've got a really good solution that covers all that.
Oh, great. Well, that's good to hear. As I said, I still wanted to have that conversation on the side because I think it's very interesting to see how that could apply out here. I would love to chat about the MLB, Major League Baseball stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do you want to cover that?
So, what's cool is perfect timing on this. They just released yesterday the new products that are being integrated into their Hawkeye solution. So I guess we'll start at the beginning here. MLB was introduced to us by one of the SIs that we're partnered with, a group out of Canada, Toronto, Canada, called Arctic. And they were the top Anthos implementer globally for Google. So Google Anthos, of course, is Google's container application platform that is competitive with OpenShift and Rancher and Tanzu, VMware Tanzu. These are the sort of Docker, the next generation of container orchestration and application platforms that make it very easy to implement DevOps practices, as well as really that continuous integration, continuous delivery model or continuous deployment model that we discussed earlier. So when they came to us, they had this need. They wanted to move all of their stadiums to bare metal. And this is covered much better than me, by the way. In the Major League Baseball has a advanced technology blog that's on Medium. And Kevin Backman wrote a great article on this, is a year and a half ago. And there's diagrams in there and everything else. It's just a fascinating read. Especially for anyone, that enjoys baseball and trying to understand how is this magic happening? Because MLB really led the charge from a digital perspective, right? Creating this fan experience it just changed the game. It literally changed the game. I mean, Moneyball, the movie, was made around tech geeks tracking every possible outcome in every possible situation. Big data actually created a World Series champion, and that's what Moneyball was all about, right? And so with Major League Baseball leading the way from a big data perspective, this was kind of a natural growth of that. And they had their systems built out, and they had some really cool stuff happening for their fans. But there was always ways to make it better, ways to make it more cost effective, ways to cut out travel and expenses related to having to go to the stadiums directly. So they had a vision to do that, and critical in that was being able to remotely discover, provision, and manage bare metal at each of the ballparks. And that's where we came in. So we were introduced. They knew we had a platform to do that, and it was honestly, it was just a hand in glove thing. I mean, we were essentially hired and asked to put it in production in a week. It took a few weeks to get her done. There's quite a few stadiums, but that's another really fun thing that we get to experience here at Metify and with the solution that we have with Mojo Platform is you get introduced to these different teams, and they all have different skill levels, and they all have different pain points that they're trying to fix, right? They all have different visions for where they want to take their technology. MLB has a separate, they have an internal consulting group, MLB Advanced Media. These guys are really good. I mean, they were their own company, and I believe, and I really should check the history on this. I know that they were acquired by Major League Baseball and just rolled in at some point. So, they recognize that, hey, these guys are good enough, and we're paying them enough. We might as well bring them in, right? When you're MLB, I think you can make moves like that, right? So as Major League Baseball Advanced Media, they've just done some amazing things, and getting to work with that group was really a treat in terms of professionalism and just the way they run their organization. So it's Felipe Negron, who's their vice president of IT, Kevin Backman, who is the senior architect and Google Cloud fellow, brought us in and kicked tires on Mojo Platform to get this all started. Just, these guys are really good. And on the network side too, they're just exceptional. So yeah, that was the challenge. Make it happen for us, guys. It was right in our wheelhouse. We knocked it out of the park, pun intended. And we've been growing with them for a couple years now, so now we've got some of the minor league ballparks are coming up, and there's challenges there because the facilities are much different, and depending on what we're working with, sometimes it's a closet, sometimes it's we don't even see the sites, right? This is all done remotely for us. So however they initially get the IPs handled, once they are in our database, in our CMDB, we can then go out, discover, provision, and do all the things they need to do to those nodes. And with Google as our partner on this, the initial provisioning and operating system rollout, as well as the BIOS upgrades and the integration of RAID and all that, is what we handled. And then Anthos was layered on top of that. And we do have a service catalog, so it's push button Anthos clusters, builds, and now Major League Baseball, I think, handle things a little differently with the Anthos cluster deployments specifically. But it's one of those things where if we wanted a custom script in our service catalog, we could do that. So it would be a single push button deployment. But like I said, they're highly technical, and it's just a really good, rock solid group of engineers over there. So I know they have some of their own magic that they do as well. But that low level piece in particular, getting the bare metal ready, maintaining the bare metal, and since they are a target in many ways, right? We are in cyber warfare right now with the globe, right? So from a security perspective, that's another area that we provided a lot more sort of robust security features that made them feel more confident in doing the things that they needed to do. And which is, that's an important point, I guess. If I back up, Ian has an extensive security background as well, and we built Mojo Platform really foundationally with security as our first point of engineering that we knew we had to nail. So really feel good about how we set that up, and we have DoD designs as well, and worked with the DoD and from a security perspective. So we've had great experience in making sure that it's hardened and ready to take on the enterprise challenges of any value from a target perspective, right? There's definitely some that raise high up on the attack surface list, if you will, of bad actors. You got North Korea, Russia, China, really constantly attacking private enterprise now in the U.S. and globally for that matter, right? Iran. So yeah, it's really we take that very seriously, and it's one of those things that I think Ian's background made it important for us to make sure we deeply embedded that into the product.
So it's just slightly going backwards on the MLB stuff. You mentioned Hawkeye. Now, I mean, my knowledge of Hawkeye is more from baseball, I understand, played it, etc. But Hawkeye was what they were using in cricket to monitor the ball traveling from one side to the other, arriving at the batsman. Is it the same technology from the hand of the pitcher to the catcher?
It is.
Theming of the game and all the rest of it as well.
Exactly. So the Hawkeye system that they had in place, and I'm looking right here. So they had 12 cameras total, and five of them operated at 100 frames per second. And now they have upgraded those this year, and that's what the article is about. And it's by Graham Goldbeck, who is one of their data experts. And these guys are like physics majors. I mean, these guys are really, they got a wild crew of data specialists, and he's a guy I want to talk to, actually. So, but yeah, the upgrade to the cameras now, they made them 3 times as fast. So I think it's 300 frames per second now. Yes, 300 frames per second for that group of ultra fast cameras. And with those cameras, they can track ball spin coming off the pitcher's hand. And now they're including new data points. Wow. Okay, so I'm just going to read this, but fielder arm strength. So they're going to know who's got the gun, taking a hot play off of third base line, zinging it over to first. So yeah, they track player movement, and now they'll be able to track arm strength, 3D spin axis on the ball, seam shifted wake. Oh, that's cool. So seam shifted wake, I'm assuming they're talking about the wake of the airflow behind the ball, which is directly related to how much curve you're going to get. So like one of the things that they showed was, I have this in one of my decks to show customers, because I do love, the solution. It's just really cool. The Hawkeye solution, which is then feeds into StatCast, which all is on an application stack that is built upon servers provisioned and automated and maintained by Mojo Platform. So, we get to be at the very base of that, or in Kevin's chart, he has us at the top. We're kind of him, but we're really all the way on the bottom. And, we speak chip is kind of the motto, right? I mean, we're below everything else, including the operating system. So yeah, this new revision of Hawkeye is going to do some really, really cool stuff. Yeah, it looks like it's already been applied. You may have already seen some of this data featured during last year's Home Run Derby. There you go. So yeah. It's coming online to the world here right now. Baseball Savant Game Day. So yeah, it's coming on later this month. Okay, so it's very, very cool stuff, but certainly makes being involved in this space even more fun, right? I mean, when you get to work.
Sure. Yeah, and look, I mean, the end user experience is great too. I mean, there's no other platform that you can log into and watch any game you like. It's on as long as it's obviously being played, or the day before, and see all sorts of interesting stats, while they're playing.
Right.
Which no other sport has it right now.
Yeah. Every time you see like they'll even talk about the spin live, right? So you'll see the 102 mile an hour, pitch come across the plate, and you're just like, oh my God, how in the hell would anybody hit that thing?
No, exactly. So what's the future hold for you guys? I mean, what is the plan? You mentioned Photon, you mentioned Mojo. I mean, is there another third product coming, or is it really just continuing on the same trend?
No, this is it. And truly, well, the union of the two, I think, is the exciting thing in the future, certainly for us. But Mojo, we've been in almost self-imposed stealth, so we're kind of sharing some things with you that I don't even know if we've shared with anybody before, frankly. But we wanted to make sure the product was essentially frictionless from a customer experience. So just like the digital experience is so important for the home, it's also incredibly important for directors of IT, enterprise architects, CIOs, guys that would love to check out our product. So that's a piece that we're finalizing now to make it so they can download and use it for free on X amount of servers. And then if they found value in that after they, use it beyond a certain point, we would bring them into a subscription. But that's why we've kind of been in self-imposed stealth. We've done no marketing and no sales. Essentially, we have no sales group or anything. And now we actually were just funded by a really cool sports-related venture capital company out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, called Titletown Tech. So that's another thing. Gosh, yeah. Well, that hasn't been announced yet, but so really excited about that. And they actually are funded by the Green Bay Packers are part of that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Packers. Yeah. Very good. So Green Bay Packers are part of that. Microsoft is part of that. And it's just a great group of guys up there. So with that, it enables us to do the things we wanted to do around marketing and awareness, and then have some fun, just continue having fun with this and expanding our use cases. And hopefully, because we are viewed as a competitive advantage, it would be great to get some more referenceable customers, but a lot of what we do is a tad secretive right now. So I look forward to hopefully, just being able to continue doing what we're doing and make more people aware of how much Mojo Platform can do for them, both from a efficiency, optimization, green data center. When you operate as low as us, It allows you to really tackle unique use cases and apply efficiencies that were otherwise not attainable. Like I said, a few years ago, without having the ubiquitous open standards now being adhered to, we can enable things that just weren't doable before. So that's a big one. Yeah.
Just out of interest, I mean, do you have and if you don't have, it's not a problem. I was just wondering, do you have like a stat or a feel for how much more efficient or greener your solutions are versus, say, the market as a benchmark? Or is it
we've done modeling, right? And so a lot of this is driven around our partnerships. So there's leads, leads efficient products that you can work with that greatly enhance the efficiency of a data center. Similarly, there's low voltage home solutions that you can use that will, massively drive efficiencies out of the home. So in terms of lowering the carbon footprint overall, there's a number of tricks that we are integrating into our product, and specifically the intelligence around power consumption and workload overall efficiency. We monitor all those things. So yes, we can spin up and spin down servers based on specific criteria that you can build into that we can build into the product. And so there's it really just depends. I will say this, that when talking about percentage gains, there are customers that we've worked with that have very old, power hungry, hot as hell servers. Okay, so making the move into more power efficient footprints is a very important and necessary first step. There's only so much you can do with the old gear. Okay. So we really, one of the things that we always try and guide and consult towards is embracing the new hardware, because the efficiencies that are at the chip level, at the board level, they can't be reproduced any other way. We can certainly provide intelligence around racks and rows, and which ones are hot and which ones should be cooled down a little bit, which workload should be shifted over to another cluster to try and, because that rack or that row is cooler. Those types of efficiencies are built into the product as part of our green data center solution. But again, you hit a wall at some point, right? The real efficiencies are when you make the investment and get in. I should say that a big multiplier is when you make the investment, get onto the newer hardware that's LEEDs compliant, and then manage, monitor, optimize with the new stuff. That is where you get the big multiplier. So it's difficult to ascribe a percentage to it because it largely depends on what you're coming off of.
Right, I can understand that. Any closing thoughts, Ian? Maybe something from you to close out with?
No, I think Mike covered a lot of it. We've got all sorts of great stuff going on. Obviously, some of these things we can't completely talk about, but there's expect a lot of enhancements, a lot of releases, a lot of areas of the market that we're going to tackle with both Mojo and Photon. We've got a massive roadmap. We're looking forward to addressing all these things and improving customer outcomes in the data center, and also kind of slaying the rural broadband space. We want to continue to deliver quality service and disrupt. We love disruption.
Yeah, great. Super.
Yeah, that's
and go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say on that, on the future front, I would be remiss not to point out the Distributed Management Task Force, the DMTF, the great work that they're doing with the Redfish specification and the industry-wide buy-in. These are really important groups. So these open standards organizations don't get enough credit for the hard work that they do to keep these. First of all, make the Redfish specification what it is, and having the ubiquitous acceptance around it, along with the Open Compute Project, along with OpenBMC. There's just a number of really great standards groups that have made this all possible. And then that leverages the open source community to drive innovation. There's no way any single company could afford the research and development that's required to get all these APIs built, figure out what's the best next thing to integrate into the project itself. And so the guys at the DMTF and the Redfish team is just doing an extended ecosystem is doing a phenomenal job of, identifying what they should include next, what the next specification should roll in, and those schemas are being built out as we speak every day. And so our roadmap is beautifully built for us by these open standards groups. And we just built this wonderful interface that makes it extremely easy to flip those new abilities and standards into a product and recognize the efficiencies that you can gain out of them, really quickly.
Fantastic. It'd be good to actually get a list of those organizations from you.
Yeah.
Some of them, I don't know them, so it'd be good to just know of them and read up on them. If someone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Just hit our website, metify.io, and you can call we have an 800 number, and as well as a demo request. You can schedule a meeting with us directly from our website. Multiple ways. Just jump on the website or hit us on LinkedIn. Whatever works out easiest for you. In this world of multi-stream media, we're trying to be as present as possible out there. So
fantastic. And I'm assuming as much as you've got American clients we've talked about, but you're available global. Anyone with a data center really or server requirement.
We are, yes, and we have some European partnerships as well as customers. So we love working over the pond whenever possible. And look forward to it. So
lovely. Fantastic. Thanks very much, guys. It's been great chatting with you, and I wish you all the best. And thank you for delivering the MLB experience.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website, www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website, www.digitalworkspace.works, and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.